Ag Matters is underwritten by Ag West Farm Credit. Ag West Farm Credit is a financial cooperative that provides financing, crop insurance, and related services to farmers and ranchers across the West. From small family businesses to large operations, Ag West brings the experience and financial know-how to help you grow your best future.
Welcome to Ag Matters, covering positive agriculture stories from across Alaska on Big Cabbage Radio.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Ag Matters. I'm your host, Ken Hoffman. I'm a farmer out here in Palmer. My little farm's name is Matsu Microgreens, where we grow microgreens and edible flowers and vegetables for restaurants and cruise ships. But I'm also the executive director of the Alaska Farm Bureau. So if you're interested in becoming a commercial farmer or want to network with other farmers, feel free to reach out to me. Our website is alaskafb.org. But on the line today is a buddy of mine, Tim Huffman with the Midnight Sun Beekeeping Club out in Anchorage. So Tim, thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, you're kind of a celebrity in the beekeeping world, especially here in Alaska. So if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself for those who do not know you and how you got into, or how you ended up in Alaska and Anchorage and how you got into beekeeping.
That's a load. So I'll start with the beekeeping part. I've been beekeeping since 2018. I kind of always wanted to do it and finally got around to it. Turned out I had a knack for it, so I kept getting more hives. I ended up getting hired by 49th State Brewing as their beekeeper. And what appeals to me the most about beekeeping is sustainability, which is getting bees through winter, using my colonies to make new colonies and new queens, and not having to buy bees because I'm sustainable. Now, between 2000 and last year, I didn't buy any bees. I was able to be completely sustainable. I had a rough winter last year, so I did have to buy some. But in my worst winter, I got 6 of 14 through, and I expect to get back around 80% after this year.
Amazing.
I got Alaska 40-some years ago. I was living in Oregon and just decided it was time for adventure and sold everything that didn't fit in my truck and drove north. And it's all been a good ride since then.
So you're saying you can overwinter bees here in Alaska? I thought you couldn't. I thought it was impossible.
Well, that was the myth that was perpetrated by many folks. It's actually their logical conclusion. If they were using substandard gear and substandard methods, those bees were not going to survive. And for a long time, the only research on keeping bees through winter was done in places that barely have winter, where it gets down to a bone-chilling 31 degrees at night for about 6 weeks and then spring blossoms. They also did all their research on uninsulated hives, just 3/4-inch wood hives with an R value of less than 1. So given that information, if you tried to replicate their gear and their methods, your bees were going to die the vast majority of the time. What we know now is that if you modify your methods and if you use insulation strategies, then most of your colonies are going to get through the winter. And the more experience you have, the greater percentage of those are going to get through winter.
Okay. Does it depend on the variety of bee? Because I know there's Russians, there's Italians, Carnolians.
To some extent. I would say that any strain except Italians are good to overwinter. Italians are awful to overwinter because they don't interpret environmental cues the way you want a colony to. So they'll keep raising brood when it's too late to raise brood, or they'll start raising brood in the middle of winter when they can't sustain it. So Italian colonies are really good at killing themselves, whereas the other colonies that evolved in cooler climates have the genetic capacity to adapt to winter-type conditions and make it through.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like a lot of work trying to overwinter bees. And so for years, if people have just been buying new colonies every year, why do you think beekeepers now should make the switch to overwintering?
Well, first, it's not a lot of work. It's actually less work, I would say. So in the fall, it just means you have to start feeding them sugar syrup. So you're going to spend less than $50. It's usually less than $25 on the sugar needed for them to store up enough resources to make it through winter. You do have to have an insulation strategy, and you can either use an external insulation strategy, which is people using wooden hives but putting foam insulation on the outside, or you can buy polystyrene, high-density polystyrene boxes that come with an R value of somewhere around 7. And that is sufficient for them to get through. Now, the polystyrene boxes are more expensive, but they are also more successful at keeping bees warm, which is really the strategy for getting them through winter. And then in the spring, and this is why it's not more expensive, you don't buy new packages. So, I run 10 hives a year about. That's what I start with. I usually end the summer with around 16 to 18 and go into winter with that many. And then if I get through winter with too many, which is more than 10, I sell the extras, which not this year, but the last 2 years, I actually had to sell some extras that I came through, because if I don't get back down to 10, I have too many by the end of the year. And so if you figure I ran 10 hives for that 6 years, and I did not, if hives are let's just say $200, which is a screaming good deal, that's $20,000 I saved in 5 years. So
Wow.
A little bit of extra care of feeding them in the fall is worth saving 20 grand, I would say.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it sounds super smart, and the hives are generally larger than the box of bees that you purchase. Is that correct?
Here's the advantage. They're actually probably about the same size, but the difference is my overwintered colonies start rearing brood April 1st. But if you install a package, even if you get one of the earliest packages, which is usually mid-April, and the queen is caged, she's not going to usually start laying until the 3rd week of April. So overwintered colonies are usually one full brood cycle ahead. And how that plays out over the summer is they do get bigger faster, and they take advantage of this early nectar flow that involves dandelions and a few other flowering plants, because they're in a position where they have a large enough forager force to store extra nectar as honey, whereas those packages are just getting established. And so all of that extra nectar is being converted into rearing more brood.
Wow. So it sounds like you have a lot of knowledge when it comes to this beekeeping thing. And there might be a lot of listeners that have wanted to have hives, but just don't know how to even get started. What do you recommend for newbies that want to get into this craft?
Well, first of all, you don't have to be a genius. You just have to be a system. And we have a pretty good system for being sustainable. So the first thing I would say is you need to take some classes. All my classes are online and free. My YouTube channel is Anchorage Backyard Beekeeping. And there's a section for new beekeepers that has all of my classes. So that's a good foundation. There are also lots of people that do in-person classes. They're all very reasonable price. So I would educate myself about keeping bees, especially keeping bees in Alaska. And then I would decide what kind of beekeeper I wanted to be. If you want to be a sustainable beekeeper, then you want to buy the equipment that is going to help you be sustainable. And you want to find people to talk to that are successful at sustainable beekeeping. And there are more and more people that are getting their bees through winter every winter. I would argue that you should buy your equipment locally, and that you should buy your equipment from somebody that also gets their bees through winter. And that's the best way to make sure that you are using the gear and the methods you need.
Mm-hmm. What are some good reputable sources for equipment here in South Central Alaska?
Well, the person I've worked with the most is Nathan Bromley. He owns and operates Regeneration Nutrition, which is in Eagle River. And he's a great beekeeper, has been keeping bees sustainably for quite some time. I should add that, people ask, the most common question I get about beekeeping is how much time does it take? Mm-hmm. And it does not take a lot of time, an hour a week. If you have 1 or 2 hives, an hour a week is the most you're ever going to spend on those bees. Mm-hmm. Now, you may want to spend more time with them, but that's all you have to, especially once you get a little bit more experience.
Nice. So for purchasing the packages of bees, who do you recommend purchasing in South Central? Do you recommend getting 1 package, 3 packages for a newbie? How do people get started on that?
So just so people know, a package is essentially a screened box filled with about 4 pounds of bees, which is about 12,000 bees and 1 queen. And packages cost in the neighborhood of $240 this year, a little higher, a little lower, depending on who you got them from. And you take those bees from the package and shake them into your hive equipment. And it's always best if you can start with 2 hives. You'll learn faster, but beekeeping can be expensive, so it's perfectly fine to start with 1. And I think all of the people that sell bees in Alaska are reputable and have good bees. I don't think anybody's bringing bad bees up. So in a sense, that doesn't matter. Nathan, who I mentioned earlier, also sells bees, but there are a number of other people that also do. The only thing I would say to that is make sure you don't get Italian strain bees. My preference is Carniolans. I think they're a nice mix of gentle and winter hardy. Russians are also winter hardy, but they can be testy. And by that, I mean they're more likely to get defensive and try to sting you. and I far prefer gentle colonies that I don't have to worry about. Now, many Russian colonies are gentle and they're fine, but I have had some that I did not enjoy working with, and I like bees. So I'm strictly Carniolan now.
Nice. So I'm kind of curious. You said something about you're the beekeeper 49 for 49th State Brewing Company. What does that mean, and how did you build that business partnership?
In 2000, they decided they wanted to do a demonstration project, essentially, about sustainable beekeeping. 49th State really likes all aspects of sustainability. They have a number of arrangements with local farmers where they're supporting their sustainable practices. And so they got in touch with me after asking around people in the local community, and I interviewed with them, and it was a good match. So I have hives on top of the warehouse where they make bees. Now, the 49th State restaurant is on 4th Avenue, and that is not where the hives are. The hives are down the hill in the Ship Creek Basin. And if you're anywhere downtown close to the inlet and you look towards the Ship Creek Basin, towards the mouth of Ship Creek, there's a large warehouse down there with hives on top of it. And those are the 49th State hives. I been keeping there, had really good success with sustainability. In fact, did not lose a single colony in 2024 and 2025. Last year was rough. We had higher mortality and we did have to buy some replacement bees, but not all. So we're still working on that. They use the honey as a flavor enhancer for some of their products, some of their beers. And I always like trying a new beer that they have come up with honey as a flavor. I feel like a proud papa when my bees are helping with that.
Are those all 10 of your hives on top of the warehouse, or do you have hives scattered throughout the city?
I keep between 6 and 8 hives on top of the warehouse, and then I have another 6 to 8 of my own in my backyard and a couple other backyards in Anchorage.
Okay. So how much honey can you expect to get from a hive? Maybe your first year or compared to like your third year? What can people expect?
So the first year, you should not expect honey. The first year is about learning beekeeping, getting the bees to draw comb, which is the wax they build, and helping them build up strong for winter. Some first-year beekeepers get honey, but it should be a bonus, not an expectation. After the first year, you should get honey every year. And it's really different depending on the year and the colony. I would say, I think that getting 30 pounds a colony is probably about the average in Anchorage. There's places where it's warmer. There's places in the valley, which is a few degrees warmer, which makes a big difference. Places in the valley that get much more than that per colony. So in beekeeping, there are all these microclimates that have a tremendous effect on how your colony will perform at different times of the year. So, but 30 pounds of honey is a lot of honey. It's more than you and your family will consume in a few years. It's enough for you and your relatives and your neighbors, and some people sell some on extra on top of that.
Yeah. Do you happen to attend any farmers markets or sell your honey, or does it all go to 49th State Brewing?
Well, all of the honey that's made from the warehouse bees goes to 49th State, and I do sell my honey. I have a mailing list because I've been doing it for a while, and I just email the people on my mailing list and say, hey, the honey's here. You can pick it up Tuesday between 6 and 8, and if there's some left, then I do it again. There are a number of people who do sell at the markets and at the fair. I would encourage everyone who buys honey at the markets or at the fair to ask the vendor if they killed their bees. And if the answer is yes, or if they don't want to answer, then you know the answer is yes, then just please encourage them to get their bees through winter. With modern methods and modern techniques, you can do it. And when I talk to people, most folks do not know, first of all, that much of the honey that they've been buying is from colonies that have already been killed. The honey harvest is usually early August, and for people that start over again every year, they kill their colonies right after the honey harvest because they don't want to feed them in the fall. So ask your vendor what they do, and if you have an option, I encourage you to support sustainable beekeeping, where people are getting their bees through winter.
Yeah. So why do you think sustainable beekeeping is so important, that Alaska be able to produce their own bees and queens? Why don't we just rely on the lower 48, just like everything else?
Well, there's a number of reasons. First is financially. As we talked about before, I've saved thousands of dollars by getting my bees through winter, not having to buy them in the spring. Secondly, all of our bees, or I should say the vast majority of them, come from California, and they've had their own crazy climate weather down there. So when they have a a cold spring, then their bees don't build up well. The colonies might not come up as healthy. A couple of years ago, many of the colonies did not do well, the packages, and we suspect it was from nosema, from their very cold spring complications. A nosema is a pathogen that colonies can have. And anyway, so you divorce yourself from the California weather, however that might be. If you're somebody who thinks about carbon footprint, then you are not contributing to the process of those bees that have to get trucked from California all the way up to Seattle and then put on the airplane and then flown here. But I would say the biggest one is the sense of self-satisfaction. Mm-hmm. When you get colonies through the winter, when you use your colonies to make new queens, the satisfaction of seeing your brand new locally mated queen laying and doing a good job, it's just tremendous. Mm-hmm. It's just a great feeling. And it's something that everybody can do. It takes a little bit of experience, and it takes a good support group of other beekeepers that are, that can tell you what they're going through and how they're doing it, I should say, and how they've done it. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to come up with all kinds of great new ideas. You just have to find people that are doing it and copy their methods.
Yep. No, I 100% agree with you. I think being self-sustainable is incredibly important to ensure that the beekeeping industry here in Alaska can weather any problems that happen from the lower 48. It's good to be self-reliant. I would like to hear more about your community of beekeepers, the Midnight Sun Beekeeping Club, how you started that and what kind of meetings you guys have and how frequently you meet.
Okay. Well, actually, I think we started it, 6 or 7 years ago. I was kind of in on the beginning of it. And the idea was that we wanted people in the club who were going to keep bees sustainably. We discourage people from killing their bees in the fall, and we teach people how to make splits, how to make their own new queens, how to go into winter with more colonies than you need, so that if not all of them survive winter, then you still have enough, whatever number you want in the spring. We strongly encourage people to help other beekeepers. That's the thing I'm the most proud about our group is usually if there's somebody who's having a problem, there's somebody else in the group who can go out and help them out with it. And the idea is that that we're in this together and we're trying to establish this new paradigm of, as a community, we are keeping bees sustainably. And I think we're making great progress towards that.
That's awesome.
We meet monthly. We take a couple months off in the winter when there's less beekeeping to do, but we also have our Facebook group, which is the Midnight Sun Sustainable Beekeeping Club Forum. That Facebook group, we Facebook Live all of our meetings. So you don't actually have to be a member of the club to participate in the meetings. You can watch them online, and if you're a member of the Facebook group. And the group it's grown. It's, I don't know what there was when I started, less than 200 members, but we're over 2,100 members now.
Wow.
And just trying really hard to keep that momentum going forward, not to build, I should clarify, the idea is not to make the group bigger. The idea is to keep the momentum of that sustainable beekeeping paradigm growing, where more and more people try it and get better at it. And as they get better, they are helping newer beekeepers that also want to do that.
That's amazing. Well, would you mind finishing off this episode by telling us about your event in September?
I am going to bring up Bob Benny. Bob Benny is a very well-known, internationally known beekeeper. He's out of South Carolina and Georgia. He has a YouTube channel. I believe it's called Bob Benny's Bees, something like that. His company is Blue Ridge Honey, but he will be coming up and teaching or doing a number of presentations on September 26th. That's September 26th. I will be posting links to buy tickets for that. I keep the price as low as possible. It'll be under $50. I don't know how much. It'll be an all-day symposium and a chance to meet and talk with Bob. So I will post the links to be able to buy those tickets on all of the local beekeeping pages, which includes South Central Alaska Beekeeping Association, SABA, HABA, which is the Homer Area Beekeeping Association, Alaska Extreme Beekeepers, which is a bunch of interior beekeepers. But if you are a member of any of the Facebook groups, you'll see the link for tickets. If you want a ticket and you're not a member of a Facebook group, you can email me at anchoragebackyardbeekeeping@gmail.com. And I'll make sure to include you in the mailing when those tickets are available.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Tim, for calling in today from your busy day. And I hope you have a great beekeeping season.
Thanks. I hope you do too. I know you're a beekeeper as well.
Yep. It's an amazing hobby. I love the hobby, and it complements gardening perfectly too for the pollination. We didn't even talk about those benefits, but there's so many benefits to beekeeping here in Alaska. It's fun.
All right. Well, I'll come back anytime.
Okay, thanks, Tim, and I'm looking forward to your symposium.
Thanks, Ken. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
You've been listening to Ag Matters, covering positive agriculture stories from across Alaska on Big Cabbage Radio. Ag Matters is a production of Radio Free Palmer, recorded at our studios in Palmer, Alaska. For more information about this program, email manager@radiofreepalmer.org.